So could you tell me your name and when you were born?
My name is Tarik, and I was born in 1984 in Cairo, Egypt.
How was Egypt in your childhood?
A very warm country, not just weather-wise, but also relationship-wise. People are different in Egypt than any other country. They are more interacting with each other. For Europeans, it might be that they are invading their privacy sometimes. But for Egyptians, that's just being friendly. So Egypt, for me, during my childhood, I learned a lot from people in the street, from family, from friends, in every way, about life, about the right and the wrong, and yeah, it's interesting to be raised up in a country like Egypt.
Could you give me an example?
In Egypt, it's a Middle Eastern country. We have different traditions, different culture. So whenever a person is crossing the lines in the street, for example, you'd see people stopping this person and talking with that person, arguing, even fighting. I can even share a personal experience with you. I was walking with my wife, but fiancé at that time, in the street, and 4 people flirted with her. And I was just standing there helpless because I had her with me, and some other group that was walking, and they told me, yeah, okay, don't worry, we will handle them. And they started fighting with these people, fist fighting. So that's something I don't think that I would find in other countries, no. And not in Germany, of course.
What did your parents do? Were you the only child?
No, I'm the eldest of 4. I have 3 brothers, 1 year younger than me, and 4 and 7. So the youngest one is 7 years younger than me.
Would you share something about your parents?
Yeah, both of my parents are doctors. My father is a gynecologist. My mom is a dermatologist. My father and my mom, they both come from a big family. My father's side, they are a bit more than 10,000 members. My mom's side, it's that big that now it's divided to very small numbers, so they don't keep track anymore. And that actually also defines how you think, what kind of people you befriend, and how your life will be. That shapes your life. If someone is from a big family that keeps track of each other and stick together, not just by location, but also Facebook or emails or phones, it differs. It makes your life different. A lot of things you can do, for example, like you can't stay late by night in an area where a lot of family members live, because it's not good. In Egypt, nightlife isn't really a good thing. It's a sign of a bad behavior.
So, how was your youth? What did you do during your youth, teenager times?
Oh, it was a tough time. As you can imagine, having 4 boys is not easy at all. And especially with both of my parents working. So they were very strict, especially my father. He was very, very strict. But that turned out, I think, a good way. He managed to raise the four of us in a good way. All of us are in good places in life. I think he did a good job, and of course my mom as well. She had a great role in our lives.
In school?
For around 6 years, I have been homeschooled until I was around 12, 13, and that's the age where we need to go to something called preparatory school. So we don't have classes like here in Germany, second, fourth, 13s, 12s. No, we divide them. First 6 years, it's called primary school, then 3 years preparatory school, then 3 years high school, and then you go to university. So I started to join school when I was around 12 or 13, and I learned in school how bad Egypt can be.
Which way?
Being homeschooled keeps you away from bad habits, bad influence from colleagues or classmates. In Egypt, most of the schools at that time, it was separated. Boys have their own schools, girls have their own schools. So you can imagine when just boys have a school, they can just fight to kill time. When it's the break time, let's fight. So they start fighting. Or smoking, any kind of smoke, drugs or normal smoke or cigarettes, that all started at that age. So, and also of course the stories they like to share with each other, like, oh, I knew this person and he was doing this and I think it's cool, why don't we try it? And this kind of bad influence. So that was when I started to interact with such influence. But luckily I was lucky enough to avoid all of that. So that was my school time. Of course, high school, I graduated from an engineering college. So that means that I had to study during my high school for 15 hours a day to score high enough to enter this college. Medicine is the highest college. The score needs to be like 98, 99% of your high school score. I scored 94%, which wasn't good enough to go to medicine, but it was good enough for engineering. And it was my passion, so it was good for me. But of course, 15 hours a day means you're not going to school, you're waking up early, you're studying until you have to sleep. Math, of course, beside normal physics, chemistry. Education in Egypt is a bit different than here in Germany. The subjects are different.
What happened then?
I entered, or I was accepted in a very good university. In the 50s, it was called a high institute, and it was linked to a university here in Germany, or another institute here in Germany. And we used to have the equipment from Germany, motors, our workshop equipment, tools coming from Germany, and students used to graduate with both Arabic and German certificates. And this university now is quite known in the industrial field here in Germany. that people graduate from that university, they are different than other, let's say different than other universities in Egypt, for engineering as well. So I think I was also lucky to have entered that university. I spent a bit more than how I should, the time I should have spent. This is usually 5 years study. I spent 9. But it's also different than here in Germany. You can't, it's not a semester, it's not based on credits. I think it's here based on credits. It's not like that in Egypt. In Egypt, you have each semester certain amount of subjects. So per year, you have 2 semesters. Each semester, a certain amount of subjects. If you fail in 3 during the year, you redo the year on these 3 subjects. So that was the minimum. If you fail in 2, you pass to the next year, but you have to take the exam in these 2. So that was the rule that's the rule in general in our universities. So yeah, I had more than 3 for 4 extra years. But luckily I finished and everything good started since then. I got to know my now wife, and on the same year of graduation, I started a job in a touristic city called Sharm el-Sheikh with a good company, but unfortunately the revolution started, so couldn't continue in that job. But one of my father's friends advised me to go to the Maritime Academy and take the basic trainings for working at sea. Said, it's just 2 weeks and now you're ready, and then you will be ready to go to the sea. So I thought, yeah, why not? I'm here and I don't have anything to do, so we'll see. I took it, and it was just a matter of a few months until I was also lucky and got a good start with a German company then. And in that company I met, I studied electric engineering, so I was the electrician cadet, trainee, an Egyptian electric engineer. But some unfortunate events happened, and I was kicked out of that company because at the end of the contract you get something like a performance report. It's a paper with some things to a score. His English wasn't that good, and I don't drink alcohol. So I needed 5 out of 5 in the sobriety section, because I don't drink alcohol, I'm always sober. He scored me 2. So for the company, they thought I'm drinking alcohol, or I'm not sober when I'm on board, maybe high, maybe. So they decided to release me. But that took 8 months later, I joined Cypriot company, and I've been working with them since then until November 2017. So around about 5 years I've been working with that company.
You mentioned the revolution before. How did it affect your life?
It changed all my plans. Also meeting your life partner also changes all your plans. So it's not a bad change or a good change, it's just a change. Hopefully to the better later, but I think in Egypt we are still trying to make it better. So I had this plan to work with that company, which was working with, it was working in installing boilers and boilers, laundry equipment, and kitchens for hotels. So it was a good business in the tourism field, and tourism in Egypt is something very important. The tourism sector is usually okay. But when the revolution started, it wasn't safe anymore to travel from Cairo to Sharm el-Sheikh. It wasn't safe. So they decided to close their office in Sharm el-Sheikh. And of course, that meant that I don't have a place there anymore.
May I ask you how you met your wife?
Of course, I met her through a good friend of mine, and it was just after I returned from Sharm el-Sheikh from work. I was in Cairo, and he told me, "Yeah, come, I have some Germans with me that you might like, so come, let's meet them." So I told them, Germans, now we will see. I wasn't really sure that I meet these Germans. And in Arabic, saying Germans when you refer to a female, that's out of respect. So you don't say, I have a female German with me. You would say, I have Germans with me. It's just out of respect. So I didn't get it that it's just one female meeting this guy, and how they got linked with each other was quite funny, because he saw her profile picture on Facebook. It wasn't her picture, but it was a saying in Arabic, an Islamic saying, and he thought that she's making fun. He didn't know that she really knows what is written there. And he wrote to her an angry message, and she replied with an angry message, and that's how they got to know each other. And I met him on that day. It was the first time I see her, and what caught my attention to her was that I was telling him an embarrassing story that happened to me on the construction site. I didn't expect that she understands it, or Arabic at all. And at a certain point, I noticed that she isn't eating, and she's just leaning a bit forward with her ear like that, trying to listen more. And that was our first meeting. And since then, we started meeting, not regularly, but it became more regular a few months before she left. And I was open to her that I would like to take another step, and she didn't mind, and yeah, that's how it started.
So you, when I remember that correctly, you mentioned that you, after Sharm el-Sheikh, you worked for the seed company, and then they released you. What happened afterwards?
I started checking if my father's friend has got any contacts that can help me to work, because at that time I was engaged already, and I didn't want to waste time. I already wasted 4 years in college, so yeah, I graduated 4 years older than how I should have graduated. So I wasted 4 years, and that was annoying me a lot. It was always in my mind. And also the way I was raised up, that being engaged, that's very serious. That's a huge responsibility. and my parents aren't that rich that they can help me as I would have wished or I would have wanted. So I knew that I had to do a lot of things. I had to start work, it had to be a good job, I had to prove myself, I had to keep it, because otherwise I'm not man enough for my culture, for my traditions, for my family, for the way I was raised up. I'm not a man enough like that if I can't keep the job. So I started asking around and checking, and she knew a contact that managed to get me something like a probation time in that Cypriot company, and it was a 6 months contract in a low rank, but I managed to get 2 promotions from my 2 chief engineers that I worked with, because chief engineer just works for 4 months on board. His contract is just 4, and I was staying 6. And luckily I worked 3 months with one chief engineer and 3 months with another chief engineer. And they were both satisfied with my work, and the electric engineers as well. And I got promotions, and after my vacation, my next contract was an electric engineer. So I was in my rank.
And then?
And then we started planning our life. Of course, Egypt wasn't an option. In college, I had this dream to go to Australia or New Zealand or Canada. But of course, with a wife, that everything changes. And also, how we work in Egypt is that if someone is getting married, usually they would try to find a place nearby his wife's parents. So that was our mentality, that we go where the woman is and try to make her feel comfortable, try to not to take her far away from her family, from her parents. So it became Germany, that we settled in Germany. But of course, Hamburg is an expensive city, and my salary in the beginning wasn't that high, or wasn't high enough for me to initiate my family reunion procedure, to have a residency here. So the first 4 years of marriage, I would go back to Egypt from work, apply for a Schengen visa, travel to Germany, and usually it's maximum 3 months. So if the company sends to me that I should be ready, I'm either in Germany or in Egypt. But I was just a visitor for the German government, which wasn't that bad because I only spent 4 months on land. So 2 or 3 weeks in Egypt until I get my Schengen visa, and then I traveled. So it was like, it didn't make a big difference. Then the other case, if I would be coming directly to Germany, I would be also staying 4 months and then going away. So for the first 4 years, until I had better salary at that time, we made the family reunion application in the visa, in the embassy, and I got my residency. And life has been the same since then until that day when she told me that she's pregnant. Then everything changed again.
How was Germany when you were a resident? When you became a resident, how was Germany for you?
Germany was the same until I started to stay longer on land. For me, Germany was the same. I'm spending 4 months, and it's just maybe 6, 7 weeks that I am sometimes going out, and sometimes because of the weather. The weather in summer in Germany is very cold for me. That's the coldest winter in Egypt, and it's always wet and raining, and I don't like that kind of weather. So I wasn't going out that often, and I was that, I don't know, lucky or unlucky that my vacation was usually in winter time. Germany was, for me, much different than Egypt. I could see the difference. I could see how people live, how people interact with each other. But I already had an idea that cold countries are different than warm countries. Habits are different. They have certain habits in common. All the cold areas, they have certain habits in common, which is, for example, their tendency to drink a lot of alcohol. That's quite common in cold areas. That was my idea, what I heard from people that traveled around. So I expected that, yeah, there would be people drinking alcohol, maybe too much, maybe that I didn't know if I would like that or not. I wasn't in a situation where, yeah, except on the vessel, that's something else. On the vessel, the crew, they heavily drink sometimes, but it's different. In Egypt, we would go out with my friends to coffee shops. Here in Germany, you would go out with your friends to bars. Cafes, they close at 6, 7. That's quite early. Bars can stay until 11, 12. Sometimes 1 in the middle of the week. In Egypt, I meet with my friends every single day. Doesn't matter which day it is. They have to work, and the next day, no problem. We meet at 9 or 10 p.m. We leave at 2 or 3 a.m. That was our time in the coffee shop. Of course, that's not here in Germany. In the beginning, I tried to find someone that would share my going out interests. But it was impossible. And yeah, okay, so it was just the weekends when I could maybe go out for some time and go to a bar or a cafe or coffee shop and sit there with my wife, with her friends. At that time, I didn't know many friends, or none at that time. Of course, I miss a lot of things that are in Egypt, but not here. But that's life.
For example?
For example, I might call or write to my friend, usually call my friend, any of my friends in Egypt, at any time, 11, midnight. Hey, I'm bored, let's meet. Yep, okay. They would come. If you call your friend at midnight, middle of the week, and you tell him you're bored, well, if he answered the phone, I don't think he would be friendly with you. That's something I miss. I miss being spontaneous. Germany, you have to plan everything. With most of the people, not 100% of course, but with most of the people, you have to plan. If it's unplanned, it's unwanted. I find that people are a bit rude, for example, here in Germany more than in Egypt. So the way they would express an unwanted action from your side is quite rude. In Egypt, they would tell that they don't like this action in a nice way, maybe with a smile, maybe apologizing before starting to tell you about it. Here in Germany, their face expressions, their body language, the tone of their voice, and as far as I heard, even the words they pick when they tell that they don't like something, especially from strangers, is, for me, aggressive. I would take it as an act of fight. Yeah, let's fight now. That's how we start a fight in Egypt. So if you talk with me like that, that means that you are now starting a fight with me. So I will expect that it will become violent. So yeah, that's also something. That's a small thing. In traffic jams, and let me tell you, Germany doesn't have traffic jams compared to Egypt. In Egypt, when we drive, we don't have laws for driving. So the cars can be that close with each other. It's no problem. As long as the mirrors didn't touch, everything's fine. If we have mirrors. A traffic jam, it would lower my window and I can start talking with the guy sitting in the other car. That's very common, very normal. Yeah, it can't happen here in Germany because of the weather, but if there would be a traffic jam and the weather is allowing you to open your window, I don't think they would do that to talk with each other and kill time. Because if the cars are that close, when you open the window, you are in the other one's car. So, do you have a cigarette? Oh, that song is nice. You start any kind of conversations. That's how you kill time. Strangers, totally strangers, they don't know each other. Something that I don't find over here. It doesn't have to be the same example, but in such situations where people might or there is a chance for people to interact with each other, it doesn't happen. And if someone is doing it, strange. Why is he talking with me? So this kind of interactions I miss a lot. In Egypt, I can go alone to a coffee shop, sit there, watch people playing dominoes. Takes maybe 20 minutes until they realize that someone is looking. He's sitting alone. Are you alone? Yeah, join us. Do you know how to play? Yeah, okay, sure. Next round, you're in. And I don't know them. That happened to me personally. Not just once. Because my friends don't work in Cairo, they work in other cities. So it can happen that I'm going to that coffee shop alone. And then just people sitting there, join. And same thing happens with us when we are sitting and someone is sitting alone. Sometimes he doesn't wait for us to invite him. He just pick up a chair and come and sit beside us without a word. It's okay. That's no problem. If a group of people sitting in a bar and a stranger comes and picks up a chair and comes and sits beside them, I think they would all stop talking and look at him. What do you want? So maybe it's a cultural thing, maybe, I'm not saying it's bad, it fits this lifestyle. In Hamburg they have a lifestyle and that fits them, but I miss it. You're never alone in Egypt, for example. You're never alone. If you don't have wife or kids or family or cousins or parents or brothers or sisters, or if you don't have anyone, you're not alone. It never happens. As I told you, just go sit in a coffee shop and they're open 24 hours a day. They don't close. You don't even have doors sometimes. There is no door to close the coffee shop. It's not needed. So, here in Germany, I can be alone. I can be very lonely, even with a lot of people around me, but I'm alone. It's not in Egypt, not that often, I would say, not that often. So such things, of course, I miss in Egypt. If I call someone for help at any time, 2, 3 a.m., I need help, where are you? I'm in that place, okay, I'm coming. There is no question. There is no, why don't you call the police? Why don't you call your brother? You know, I would tell myself, if I had this phone call from someone that has got 10 brothers, but he called me, I would tell myself, if I asked myself, why didn't he call his brothers? I would tell myself, maybe they are not there. I would give the excuse directly and I would just go. There's no question. Yeah. The noise in the street, the smile that everyone is giving to everyone. If someone smiled at me in the street here, I would smile. If I smiled at someone, and just crazy guy.
You mentioned life on the vessel. How is the vessel?
The vessel is literally a prison for us. You don't have internet, you don't have a mobile network. Sailing time was long, and anchorage time was long. So anchorage is when the vessel arrives to the harbor, but it cannot enter yet because there is no place for the vessel, there is no place for the cargo, many reasons. So it would just stop outside. That's called anchor. So it drops the anchor and stops there. So our sailing times could be between 1 week up to 5-6 weeks sailing time. And our anchorage drop, the longest time we stayed 6 weeks in anchor. So 1.5 months is just standing there in the middle of the sea. No internet, no mobile networks, and no television. So you had just your cabin, where you eat, the mess room, where you work, and that's it. So that was the life in the sea. Yeah, the sunrise and the sunset are very beautiful, but after 1 week, you're used to it. That's why a lot of people get depressed. Some commit suicide. We have some training programs on how to define that you have a depression, how to define which type of depression, and how to fight it. So we had training programs on how to do that. If I feel like this, I have this, then I am depressed. Okay, which type? How do I fight it? Then I need to talk more with my colleagues or start any kind of hobbies. So their hobbies would be, let's meet and drink. And then maybe they get physical. I worked with Russians and Ukrainians. They get physical when they drink. So some of them might start wrestling. Some of them would start kissing everyone else. So it depends on his mood. We didn't have women with us, so that was, I think that was a good thing. No woman was in the middle of these beasts, I would say. it was a bit like military. A group of people working together. It's not an easy job. A lot of life risks. You could die because of a mistake you do or a mistake your colleague might do. You might break an arm, you might break a leg, you might break your back. That was very common. A lot of people lose their limbs even because of this job. And they would still come back. It's very addictive. It's like military, I would say, yeah.
How was it then to be on land again?
Sometimes annoying, a lot of cars, a lot of people. You need to prepare your food. You need to buy your stuff from the supermarket. Now you have mobile networks, you have internet. Now you can go out and meet people. That can be annoying in the beginning when you are on land. No, I don't want to. I'm comfortable now on the vessel. I'm comfortable with not having internet. I'm comfortable with not having mobile networks. I'm comfortable with not having friends. I'm comfortable with not seeing all of these strange people every day. Every day a new face. We spend on the vessel more than we spend with our families. So the vessel, for us, it was home. If we go out in a harbor or something and it's time for us to go back to the vessel, spontaneously we'll do, yeah, let's go home. Yeah, let's go home. It's not strange to our ears. But it's not home, it's the vessel. We're going back to the ship. But we would say, yeah, let's go home. Spontaneously, yeah, let's go home. Yeah, time to go home now. So that was our home. So being on land, it can be... but of course it varies between one person to another. But it can be really difficult to leave the vessel and go back on land. I know people, they work for 6 months, rest for 2, and then go again for 6. Filipinos, 18 months on the vessel. He doesn't want to leave. I met a guy who was 18 months on board. He was so happy. So, with all of these risks, with all of the lack of what people would say the minimum life requirements, but it was, for most of the people I met, better than being on land, having an office job and living this lifestyle.
Do you have a question?
Can you tell us a bit about the very beginning when you first came? Like how you came?
First time I came here to Germany, it was a Schengen visa, so it was just for 3 months. So I knew that. I knew that I'm not going to stay here for long. I didn't want to build any kind of images about what I will see or what I will find. Will I like it or not? I wanted just to experience it and then see how I will feel about it. At that time, I didn't have children, so there was a lot of fun, you can imagine. A lot of different things, a lot of different places. We have been to nearly most of the bars and nightclubs and restaurants, many places here in Hamburg. It was nice. It was very interesting until I started to get used to it, that there are these places exist. Then I started missing what I have in Egypt, what lacks here. But of course, in the beginning, I was fascinated by the organization, everything is organized, everything is planned, everything is on time, buses. Later I got to know that trains aren't reliable, but buses are reliable. They are not late and they are always in time, and the people driving in the street, the people waiting for their the pedestrian green light so they can cross the street, and they have a designated place where they have to cross from there. That all I found very fascinating, and of course experiencing it for the first time was it was an amazing experience for me.
Did you get to find other people from your country here in Germany, and do you have relations with them?
I only got to know one guy. He's Egyptian and he's working here. He's a software engineer. But I got to know him, I think, a year ago, or a bit more than a year ago. Before that, I tried to get to know people through meetups or internations, which are two platforms for expats. But unfortunately, it is a bit different with mixed groups. For example, in Egypt, men are separated than women from women. So coffee shops, it's just for men. So we can curse, we can talk in any bad language, we can use any bad word freely. It's not okay to use a bad word or bad language in front of a woman. So our coffee shops, there are no women. Local coffee shops, we call it. The fancy coffee shops or American style or European style coffee shops, yeah, it's mixed. But the local coffee shops, no, just men. So I'm more comfortable in approaching a man and starting a conversation than with a woman. For me, it's more comfortable to approach a man. So when we went to these meetups, I started to be comfortable and do what I feel comfortable with, and that was approaching men and starting conversation. Hello, what's your name? Where you're from? They were pushing me away, and that was Arabs and non-Arabs. They both pushed me away, like responding in a not friendly way. I decided that, okay, I will quit it. I will quit trying to get to know someone until I met this guy. I didn't know he's Egyptian and he didn't know that I'm Egyptian. We were talking in English with another group, and luckily he was sitting in front of me on the table until someone noticed that we are talking with each other, and then, oh, why are you talking in English? You two are Egyptian. And then since that day, we got to know each other, and we started meeting regularly, maybe once a week, once a month, depends on both of us. I had to travel a lot for my work, and he was busy with his work sometimes. So so I would say I have just one guy that I'm in contact with from my country.
It's a great interview.
Yeah,
I hope so.
I don't. A simple question.
I don't know. Have you ever experienced any racism or
Oh yeah.
exclusion?
Oh
You
yes.
could say something.
I told you, being an Arab isn't easy. It's not an easy thing to be an Arab in an international career. I met a lot of racist people in many countries. The most recent one was, shockingly, Hong Kong. The immigration officer kept me for 3 hours in his office, and when I told him, I kept on asking him what was the problem, told me, "Yeah, your profile isn't clear." And when I told him, "Okay, how can I avoid that next time?" Go back to your country. That was very shocking for me. But I have had that in China, I have had that in Emirates, United Arab Emirates, which was a very funny story. My name is written in Arabic letters. So when you want to pronounce it in other languages, or write it in other letters, English letters, Latin letters, it won't be pronounced the same. So people don't pronounce my name correctly. And in Arabic, we have letters that don't exist in any other language. So they can't really write it in English, for example. So when you write my name from Arabic to English, there are many ways to write it. So Tariq, that would be my name in Arabic. Tariq, the first letter of my name doesn't exist in English. It's not a normal T. It's Ta, so pronounce it different. So you can write it T-A-R-I-K, I-Q, E-K, E-Q. It doesn't matter because it's not how my name is written. Because my name is written in Arabic, it's an Arabic name. So in United Arab Emirates, I had my traveling passport and my seaman's passport. The name in English in my traveling passport was different than the name in English in my seaman's passport. And he wanted to deny me from going out and visiting Dubai then, because my name in that passport was different than my name in that passport. And then his colleague heard him and like, "Really? Show me." And he looked at it and was like, "Come on, we're Arabs. The Arabic name is the same." I can't think of any other reason that he did that. I don't think he's stupid, because everyone knows that if you're, especially in that job, he knows that names can be different if they are originally written in another language. So why did he do that? I have a lot of other stories from my cousins and my family members that live in Emirates, how they treat them, so I know why he did that. Here in Germany, I didn't experience racism. Once in Austria, I was just 1 hour. I spent just 1 hour in Austria and I had my first racist experience in the street. But here in Germany, I'm just suffering from the bureaucracy, not from racism.
I feel like I want to ask more, but I don't know.
Go ahead.
I feel it's something. Now you're working in a ship company or something like this, or what are you doing?
No, currently I am, since I got to know, since my wife told me that she's pregnant, I didn't go to the ship. I was supposed to join the ship in November 2017, and I got to know in October 2017, or end of September? No, October. It was October. And we were in that clinic for to take vaccination because we wanted to go to Indonesia to spend our vacation. And then she told me that she's pregnant, and she asked the doctor, and the doctor said, "No, you can't travel." So We had to cancel. That was the first thing after knowing that she's pregnant. First change in the plans. And the second change was I'm not going to join the vessel, and I started working for another, searching for another job until, luckily, by the end of November, I found a company in Flensburg, and they were working also in the maritime industry, but more as a service. So I would travel for 2-3 weeks, come back again for maybe a month or so. So she would see me more often than when I was on the ship. And yeah, since then I didn't work again like my job to be on the ship. No. And from that company, I'm going again to another company that is also working in the same direction.
Two more.
Yeah.
Now this political situation in Europe in general, but also in Germany with the right-wingers coming up and stuff. Do you have any worry that your life might change to the worse if political status here between powers changes?
Of course I worry, but being or going through that revolution and the things that we have seen doesn't make it easy to intimidate those who have gone through it. At a certain point, there was no police in the street. So if I had a problem with you, I could just go to your home, kill you and your family, and no police will come. That was a lot of terror. They opened the prisons, and a lot of prisoners just walked away. And somehow they got some weapons, and the place I live in is quite close to one of these prisons. So of course they terrorized the whole area until some people managed to kill them, actually. The way we resolve our conflicts in Egypt is quite different than here in Germany. When two people are fighting in the street, they don't use their fists. They would use other things like machetes, knives, swords, locally made guns, stones, sticks, basically anything that can wound or break a bone. It's not that common over here in Germany that two people fight in the street just because they have a problem with each other. Of course, not just two, it starts with two until their friends come, and then it's a war zone. That's common, that's usual. I don't find it strange when I'm walking in the street and I see a group of people cutting each other. I've seen it a lot. So it's common in Egypt. And in the Middle East, it's not just Egypt, it's the Middle East. And it's not just gangs, no. Normal people with normal lives, they have wives, children, they are in good jobs. But he has a machete just in case a fight starts. You never know why. So, what would the right wing offer more to that? If someone is putting my wife and child in danger, I wouldn't call the police, hide in my home until the police comes. Not use that. that wouldn't be my first course of action. And of course, in such situations, people don't stop. Let me think what I will do next. And then they start acting. They would directly start to act the way they know. So if you raise up a person that if anything happens, you need to call the police, or if that happens, you call the police, that's what he will do. But if someone was raised up knowing that calling the police doesn't change anything, the police comes and stays outside until the fight is over and then comes in. Because if the police comes in, the two parties that are fighting will start fighting with the police. So the police isn't involved in such situations. So you're by your own. So whom can you rely on? Friends and family. Yourself. Whatever is in your hand. So I know that they tend to be violent towards foreigners. I have seen that in Hungary, and it was on television. They were kicking the refugees, pushing them. The refugees were just moving on. I wouldn't be just moving on or not looking, I don't think so. So I don't worry if they become more in power or less in power, because for me it doesn't mean that they are in power so I'm in danger. No, I can be in danger because of another refugee, another German, another Italian. I traveled a lot, many countries. Bad people are bad people, good people are good people. Regardless their religion, regardless their color, regardless their nationality. I was in Venezuela and they told me, the police told us, if you want to leave, here are the rules. No eye contact, no jewelry, no money, no phones, no. If you want to change money, don't go to the bank. We went out, and don't go alone, minimum 2. We were 5, we went out, we had a walk. I met some Lebanese people, so they could speak Arabic. And when I told them, they were like, yeah, police tend to exaggerate. And we had a lot of nice things to do with each other. They recommended a restaurant, we went there, and we had a walk, we bought some stuff, and they gave us good prices, to us and to them, of course, but they were good. They didn't harm us. One of my friends was in Russia, in St. Petersburg, and he was there in a training course with his colleagues. They were in a market. They started a fight with some group from Kazakhstan, and the ones that saved them, they weren't Arabs. They took them away to another shop and told them, relax, calm down, you will leave. Police wasn't involved. It's people. So a good person is a good person. A bad person is a bad person.
Great. And final question, would you go back to Egypt ever, or you think about it? I mean, under what circumstances?
I was seriously thinking about going back to Egypt until I got to know that I will become a father. Of course, for my son or daughter, it's much better for them to be raised up or brought up in a stable society. What people learn in Egypt during their early stages of life is not helping them. Children, what they learn during their early stages doesn't help them. A lot of bad habits they can catch, and that doesn't change because they are small. When they grow up with it, it stays with them. It's nearly impossible to change it. Here in Germany, my baby has a better chance of education, healthy environment. So Egypt flew away from the window when I got to know that I am becoming a father. So no, I don't think. Maybe when we're old and our children have their own paths in life, maybe then I would go back if I still have anyone there. For most of the Egyptians, they always go back if they are away from their countries when they're old. They always go back. We always say, I want to be buried in my country. I don't want to die in another country. So it's something we just say when we are there in Egypt, but when we go out, we feel it that, no, I don't want to end up or die or be buried in a foreign country. I want to go back to my country.